I have shown you mentoring and I have shown you individual training. So today it is time to tackle that last dreaded part of training in Football Manager. Of course, I am talking about team training. Now, I know that a lot of you still leave it up to your assistant, and as always, I am here today to tell you why you should not do that, and I'm going to explain you how to do it yourself. Let's go. Hey guys, it's Jochen aka Leyodemus, and as mentioned, we are going to tackle team training in today's episode. And I know team training can be really overwhelming, but no worries, I will explain it to you step by step, so keep watching until the end of the video, because only then will you have all the information you need to master it yourself. I am going to show you a couple of things, like the general setup, the moving parts of all those crazy training schedules that you have seen by now, and of course I'm going to show you some tips and tricks of mine to make life a lot easier. Now you could say this is the final video in the tutorial-ish series that I'm doing about training, but spoiler alert, it is certainly not the last video on this topic. More on that later. But as always guys, if you appreciate these videos, please don't forget to support the FM Scout channel. Hit the like and subscribe button down below, hit that little bell to be notified when a future video drops. And also, check out my own channel, Leyodemus. The link is down in the description, and I'm currently still in the middle of a Cheapest WONDERKIDS series. I've also started my Tier 10 London Journeyman, The Road to Wembley. All super fun stuff, so if that is something you're interested in, do not hesitate. Check the link down in the description. Show me some support. Massively appreciate it. Now, a first very important thing that I want to repeat, because I've also mentioned it in the individual training episode, is all the parts of the training functionality in Football Manager kind of work together. So it's not possible to just set up one part and expect superstar results overnight. That's just not how it works. Now, I know that opinions vary on team training and on the schedules, so I'm just gonna put it out there. I am here today to tell you how I do it. And if you have seen any of my previous videos or live streams on my channel, I think we can all agree that I've had some pretty decent results with that. So just wanted to put that out there. Go nuts in the comment section if you are doing it completely different. We're open for debate. So, team training. As you have seen before, mentoring can be used to totally shape a player's personality, and individual training is the way to go if you really want to guide a player's development into a certain direction. So I guess we can look at team training as the glue to keep everything together. And if you want to maximize the results you get from that team training, I think there are 5 goals you should consider here. Player fitness, tactical familiarity, team cohesion and happiness, match preparation, and finally, boom, attribute training. Notice how I put attribute training last? Allow me to elaborate on that a little later in the video. And before we dive into these 5 goals, let's go over the general setup. Now, of course, the first thing you actually want to do is take control of the training, right? So go to Staff, Responsibilities, Training, and if you haven't taken control already and it's something like this, for example, just press Take Control also on individual training, because I've taught you that already. Make sure to receive training emails is checked, and that's about it. Now, if you want to do the same thing and control the training for other squads, you know what I said last time? Do the exact same thing for example, the under 20 squad. Boom, hit confirm, and now you will see the under 20s, in my case, pop up here. And all the things I'm going to show you in today's episode are also possible for those other teams, but you have to take control first. To optimize the quality and the results of the team training, you may want to go check out your facilities. So go to Club Info, Facilities. We want to go to training facilities, of course, because I am at Pisa in Serie B in Italy, and we only have average training facilities, so I can set up the team training as good as possible. It will always be limited if this value, so to speak, is not that high. So on a regular basis, if that is the case for your club, go to Club Vision, make board request, facilities, improve training facilities, and they will probably deny you a couple of times, but I swear to God, if you get those facilities up as soon as possible, you will see better results from your training. Simple, right? Now, another thing, of course, that can help you with getting better results is the quality of your coaches. So let's have a look at our staff overview coaching team. Now, I'm not gonna go into too much detail on this as I mentioned in the individual training episode, but just try and pinpoint the strengths and weaknesses of your coaches and have them do the things that they are good at. And to actually do that, go to Training Coaches and then to Edit Coach Assignments. Now, if you have no idea what to do on this screen, do not panic, just press the Ask Assistant to Assign button, and that's a starting point. Because from there on, you can hover over each and every cell, and it will literally tell you at the bottom which coaching attributes are important for that kind of training, so you can see if that coach is fit to do that job. And of course, the star rating will also tell you the same thing. So, in short, at the bottom here, you have the coach workload for each and every training column, and you also have the lead coach rating. In an ideal world, you want a coach workload of average at max, because the higher the workload, the more of a negative effect it has on the training results. And for the lead coach rating, I would say 4 stars or higher is always good, but I know it totally depends on the club you are managing and the kind of money you have at your disposal. Now, there is a link in the description to a bunch of good coaches you can hire. Let me know if that is something you want to have a separate episode on, because I'm not sure about that. I might do one in the future. Let me know down in the comment section if that is something you would want to see, an episode dedicated to coaching staff and how to set it up properly. Let's move on. Now, if we go back to the training tab and to rest, this is something I totally covered in the individual training episode. A link is up here if you have not seen it. If you want to know more about this, check out that video. Now let's talk about scheduling, because there is a little trick I want to show you guys. If you go to FM Preferences and then go to Match right here, you will see a drop down Match Scheduling Options. Now with this drop down, you can kind of try and avoid having 3 games in a week. Do I always do it? I normally leave this on allow matches to be moved for TV broadcast. I think that's the default value, but I'm not really sure. But if you are looking for the easiest way to reuse training schedules because you always have the games on the same days in a week, go for the latter option. Use Saturday and Wednesday match days. Up to you, just know that this setting is right there. Before we move on, as always guys, if you have questions on anything related to training, leave them down in the comment section. I promise I will read them and I will try and answer them as good as possible. Because as I said before, I know training can be really overwhelming, especially if you are new to FM, but even if you're an experienced player. So do not hesitate, use the comment section. Let's help each other out. Are you still with me? Let's go. Now before we actually tackle the training schedules, let's have a look at the units first. So you want to go to the training tab, Units, and this is the screen you will see. Now every squad in Football Manager is divided within 3 units. The goalkeeping unit, the attacking unit, and of course the defensive unit. One little side note on this, if you are training set pieces, the set piece takers, as you have set them up in your tactics, will form a temporary unit as well. Now as a manager, you can of course decide which first team players go into which unit, but you can also add reserve or youth team players into those same units. If I, for example, go to this button right here to my under 20s team offensive unit, Ali Boni, no idea who he is, but now he is training with the first team players in the attacking unit. Do you want to put him in the defensive unit? No problem, just drag and drop, boom. And if you want to remove him, do the exact same thing, because he will be like highlighted or ticked, if you will. Right there, just click him again and he will be gone. Now I already mentioned this in a previous video, but I usually don't do this a lot, because yes, you can move a youth player with high potential or whatever to train with the first team players, which you logically would say is a good thing, right? And I agree, because probably your first team will have better coaches and all, so that's good. But we are forgetting that he will still be in the under 20s, in this case, team. He will only be training with the first team. So in other words, if he has a game with his under 20s squad on a certain day, and the next day is a very heavy training session with the first team, he will do both. So please be careful with this. Do not get your young players injured like hell. If you really think a player is good enough to train with your first team squad, for the love of God, just move him to the first team squad. But also, if he is older than 18 years old, give him some playing time because that is super important for 18 plus players. If he is younger than 18, you could just have him train with the first team squad, but I would simply, if you really want to, just move him to the first team, give him some playing time if you can, because that will really help their development out, instead of just adding them to the units and ignoring the fact that they're actually playing their games with their original squad. Now, where do these units come back into the training schedules, you might ask? Well, if we just go to training, click any card, it doesn't matter for now. Let's say we want to go for ground defense. Let's have a look. Because as you can see, it is actually divided into these 3 units. Defensive unit, priority 60% for this card because it's like a defensive-minded training session. Pretty normal that they get the most focus. 60% for them. Attacking unit 20% and goalkeeping unit 20. All working on their individual roles, which I'll come back to later. And this, my friends, is where the magic starts, because if we go to training schedules, this is the screen where we will actually make our own training schedules. And we have a couple of options here to start from scratch. We can just go create new schedule. We can choose one of the templates that the game gives us and use that as a starting point. Or you can of course also go to custom schedules, import schedule, boom, just a little test that I've done, load that in and use this as a starting point. Couple of options, you choose. Now, apart from which starting point you use, there is always an end goal, right? I've shown you the 5 goals earlier on, we'll get back to that in a minute, but just know that at every given point in time, you kind of have a live dashboard on how you're doing on that. If you look at these things up top, and you can even hover over them to get some more information, you can actually see how you are doing, for example, on match sharpness, condition, injury risk, familiarity, you name it, it's all there. And the same thing goes for these colored bars at the bottom. For each training unit, you can see for each day how the intensity is compared to a match. Because of course a match is kind of the most intense training session you can get. Now, if you just click on one of the cards, it will get you to this screen, and this is where we can actually build our schedule. Now, you can pretty much move these things around and place every session in each slot, but each type of training session has their maximum amounts they can be used in a single week. If I, for example, go to extracurricular and go for team bonding, I know there is a maximum of 1 session per week of this type of training session. So if I try to do the exact same thing in another free slot, it will be grayed out and it will actually tell me when I hover over it that we have reached the maximum number of sessions for this type of training allowed this week. But apart from that, you can pretty much use every session wherever you want, except for 2 sessions, match preview and match review. You can only use these sessions before and after a match day, but I highly recommend you do. I'll get back to that later. Now, we'll actually build some decent sessions in a minute, but just know for now, if you are done with this, just click confirm, save as, you can give it a name, test video for example, press OK, and from this point on you can actually start using this session in your team training calendar. And of course we can find that very calendar under training calendar, and if you now click on the drop down and go to custom schedules, you will find that exact schedule that we have just created. Now, if there are changes in your team's playing schedule, you will get an email like this one right here, and I beg you to check that out if you get one, because this is the point where the AI or your assistant manager tries to take over and reschedule things according to those new games. But as we all know, the AI tries, but most of the time kind of fails. And that, guys, was the simple part. Let's start now with creating actual schedules that you guys can use in your saves. Allow me to elaborate on those 5 different goals that I mentioned earlier, because I really encourage you to use them when building up your own training schedules. You guys ready? Let's do this. So let's go to training schedules, new schedule, create new schedule. Now, the first goal I told you was player fitness. This is pretty obvious because of course by training your players, their condition and their fitness level will go up. So whatever the session is that you want to put in here, just make sure if you add something or actually make some changes to any day, you keep an eye out on this little bar right here. This is the intensity bar, as I mentioned before, per unit. And it's kind of, you have to look at it as a whole per week. Let me elaborate on that. Let's take this session as an example. We have a match on Saturday, which means we want to go easy on them at least one day before the game, preferably 2 games. And when I say easy, I don't mean like no training at all, but just don't go into the bright green. That would be my advice. Again, everyone will tackle this in their own way. I can just tell you how I normally do it. And for the rest of these days, it kind of depends. If you have had a game on the Sunday before this week, go easy on them on Monday, of course. I think you get the picture. Normally, I go for 2, maybe 3 days a week in the bright green. So I could add another session here, for example, physical. This will be too much, but let's say tactical. So now I have 3 bright green intensity days and 2, let's say dark green. And that's pretty much it. So just know that the intensity levels are there for you to kind of see how heavy a training day is. And I think the main advice I can give you is think about it logically. And it also depends if you are in preseason. I know I also tend to push them harder and have more intense training days, but in the regular season, especially in a period where you have a lot of games, don't push them too hard. So for now, I'm just gonna put the match in there on Saturday, a match preview on Friday, and a match review on Sunday. Remember, this card you can only choose the day after an actual game. And I've also put in a recovery session on Sunday. Sometimes I even change that to a team bonding session, but that's totally up to you. Now for our second goal being tactical familiarity, we have to go to the training screen, and here up top you can see this. Because of course it all depends on how many different tactical systems you are using, because I think I'm only using 1. Yep, let's add another one right here. It doesn't even matter which one I add. Let's go back to training. And now you can see that I can actually choose the primary trained tactic. And for each one that I choose, you can also see the familiarity my team has. Of course, I don't think I've selected anyone in here in my lineup. So if I just do a quick pick for now, and I go back again, you can see that this kind of changed, because this is actually relevant for the players in your starting 11 in your tactics screen. And keep that in mind, because it is easy to go like, what, we're not even 50% familiar with our main tactic. But it could be that your B team, for example, is in your starting 11 for some cup game against a low tier team or whatever, but then this value is actually based on those players. Now pretty much every session in the match preparation tab is good, but of course match tactics is a really good one because it focuses on all players. You can see that it takes every tactical familiarity box, and it also increases even team cohesion. But go nuts on this. I'm not gonna go over every single card. Do know that, for example, defensive shape and attacking movement have also got a little thing called upcoming match. More on that later. So what I like to do is actually to put a match tactics or a teamwork session right there on the day before the game. Now you might wonder, why can I not put a session in directly before the game to pump up the guys with some team cohesion or whatever? Well, it's just how Football Manager works. If you have a game day, you will always have 2 rest sessions before and after the game. And if you're playing an away game, you might also have an extra travel session, well, a travel slot, because you can't do anything about it on the day before and or the day after the game. And what I also like to do, by the way, to get back to tactical familiarity, is to put another of those sessions at the beginning of the week, because normally we are coming out of a game weekend, so I'm not really tempted to go hard on them on a Monday, for example. So that's also an awesome session. And one more thing, guys, on tactical familiarity is, if you are not playing the players in an actual game, they will never max the familiarity out. What I'm trying to say is you can train them to get familiar with a tactic, but if you decide to never play them, they will never get really familiar. Makes sense, right? And of course, it is okay to have multiple tactics, and you can train them separately by changing that little drop down that I showed you earlier. But just know, the more tactical systems you have, the longer it will take before your players are totally familiar with all those systems. Third goal is team cohesion and happiness. Now, I think this one is really easy to understand, because as we all know, a happy team is a well-functioning team. And if you want to know your team cohesion and your team happiness, go to dynamics. Here you can find your team cohesion. And what I like to do to have an idea of how happy my players are is in that same dynamic screen, go to happiness. And I really use this screen a lot, man, because it's a perfect overview just to see if your players are happy and also the reasons why they would be unhappy. First of all, and I highly encourage you to include this session in every single week if you have, I don't even care if you have 7 games in a week. Is that physically possible? Probably not, but you get where I'm coming from, right? And that session is team bonding. It greatly increases happiness, it increases team cohesion, it works on the teamwork attribute, which is always good. It works on the teamwork for the upcoming match, more on that in a minute. It slightly reduces fatigue and it slightly reduces condition. That's it. As far as team cohesion and team happiness goes, maybe this is the best session out there. And there's only a maximum of 1 per week. So for the love of humanity, put that in every single schedule. And the last thing that is often overlooked is that the rest session is actually a session. Because in a rest session, the fatigue is greatly reduced, of course. The condition is increased, the happiness is slightly increased because, I mean, it's a rest session, right? But the team cohesion is also reduced. Not sure if you want that a lot, but of course we need to have rest sessions in every training schedule. It's perfectly normal. We're not drilling special forces here. We're managing a football team. And if you're looking for another session to kind of increase your team cohesion, go to extracurricular community outreach. 4th goal, match preparation. Now you might have seen it before, but on some cards you can actually see, for example, the teamwork card, upcoming match. And it's really as simple as that. It will influence the teamwork and the pressing for the upcoming match only. So if there is anything you see that has the upcoming match indication, it's literally to do with a preparation on the next match. Simple. And this is my personal choice, but I sometimes tend to totally ignore it. Why? Because I just want to use, like, for example, the match tactics session. I want my familiarity to be up there all the time, not especially for the next game or whatever, but I just want it to be good. And the same thing with my set pieces. You can actually go, for example, to set pieces attacking free kicks. I use these sessions because I want to have players that are actually familiar with my set piece schedules, my set piece setup, let's call it like that. So the way I normally do it is like this. We have a match on Saturday, we have 2 match preparation sessions on Friday, and then I have extra set piece training plus a team bonding session on Thursday. And these 2, is it purple, is it pink? These 2 sessions I tend to alternate between free kicks and corners because it's in the same tab, set pieces. You can literally go, instead of attacking free kicks, go attacking corners, and instead of this one, go defending corners. So in this case, I'm gonna go with attacking corners and defending corners. And let's see, can I put another session here? You know what? I'm just gonna move the teamwork session to here because now we have a fully dedicated match preparation day, the day before the game, which is awesome in my opinion. And we have attacking corners, defensive corners. We have like a set piece plus team bonding day 2 days before the game, all in the beautiful dark green, which is really not intense, and that is exactly what I want to see in the days prior to a game. And the final goal that I mentioned, attribute training. And if I think about attribute training, I think automatically about individual training because that is the one and only way to go in Football Manager if you really want to steer or guide a player's development in a certain position or direction or whatever. Do that using individual training and use team training to kind of support that all, to keep the team as a whole very strong instead of focusing on individual players and individual attribute training. So there are a couple of cards. Let's go, for example, to defending aerial defense. I think I've shown you this before. It's also in the 5 tips video. Link is down in the description, by the way, to all the training videos I did so far. But if you see this in a card, individual roles, this means they will train whatever you have set up in their individual training, that first part, the position and role training. That is this. If you don't have a single card that has this in it, that will not be trained. So that is the exact reason why, although I said that like team training is about the team, but of course, if I am really heavily investing in that individual training, I need those individual role things to be in my schedule, right? So let's do that. What I personally like to do is on a Monday, for example, general goalkeeping. This trains obviously the goalkeepers in a certain way, but all the other units, being the attacking and the defensive unit, will in fact train their individual roles. And the same thing goes for sessions like the one I showed you earlier, aerial defense. Ground defense is another good one. It's a really good session because your defensive unit in both cases is training attributes that are really handy, but your attacking and your goalkeeping unit are indeed focusing on their individual roles. So I always include one of these two, and it's the same with these set pieces. I just alternate between them week by week. That's kind of how I do it. Of course, we also have an attacking variation of this same session being, and it's not in the attacking tab, in the technical tab you have chance conversion and chance creation. And I've messed it up again, so let's do this. Boom, boom. Now we have all 3 sessions on one day, and you can see it's still in the darker green, so that's really good. It's not intense, but still basically we have a major focus on our individual training. So at least one day a week, I do this. A day fully dedicated to individual training in my team training schedule. And this means, guys, that we have focused on 5 goals and we now have 2 whole days to our disposal in which we can basically do whatever we want. For example, like this. I've put a physical session in there with an overall session, which is quite heavy on the intensity, but that's okay. And I've also gone for quickness, but I could have gone for what? Resistance, endurance in the physical department. And I've added another tactical session to that, attacking shadow play. But as I said, these 2 days are really the dynamic part of my 1 game a week training schedule. So now we can of course confirm this. If we are done, go save as, let's say, Saturday game. There we go. Boom. And from this point on, we can actually start using it in our training schedule calendar. Now, if you want to use it in other saves as well, the best thing you can do is go export, give it the same name or whatever you want. Let's say Saturday, if I can spell it at least, Saturday game, save, and from now on you can literally in your other save come in here, go to custom schedules, import schedule, and it will be right there. So you have to do it once, then you can reuse it in every single save you do. This was my Saturday game schedule. I'll quickly show you a schedule for a 2 game week with Wednesday and Saturday games, and then I'm also going to show you one for pre-season. Let's go. For the 2 game a week schedule, it's really simple if you ask me. We have a game on Wednesday and a game on Saturday, which means we have a full preparation day on Tuesday and on Friday, and a recovery day on Thursday and Sunday. No training whatsoever is going on those days. So that leaves us with Monday alone. And here it kind of depends if you have had a game heavy weekend or not. So you can basically choose whatever you want here. I have now gone for team bonding to get the cohesion and the happiness up, and a set piece delivery. But in all honesty, these 2 slots or even these 3 slots, you can do whatever you want. And last but not least, the preseason schedule that I really like to use is something like this. I arrange my friendlies on a Saturday and I have a match practice session on Tuesday and on Thursday because this is an awesome session, man. And let me tell you why. For every player, it ticks every single box in the tactical familiarity department. Oh, attributes, individual roles, check, and it greatly increases happiness and team cohesion. So, do I only use these sessions in preseason? No, but I tend to use them a lot in preseason because they're awesome, dude. And in the middle, we have a kind of intense training day with the physical training, a set piece training, and some team bonding. You can also switch this around wherever you want, by the way. Doesn't really matter. The point is, we have 3 kind of heavy, kind of intense, if you will, training days. And we have a friendly game on Saturday. Of course, Sunday is recovery day. Friday is totally devoted to match preparation. It's preseason, remember? So probably you will have some new players coming in. Maybe you even have a new tactic. So we really want to go heavy on team cohesion, also for those new players, and on tactical familiarity. And on Monday you can kind of freewheel. I have chosen to go for yet another tactical session, 2 even, attacking shadow play and defensive shadow play, and a goalkeeping session to get into those individual roles. But in fact, you can kind of see what your team needs, to be honest, to put on this Monday, but I wouldn't go too intense, because 3 intense days are coming up after that. Literally guys, those are the schedules that I always use, or at least some variation on these schedules, because it's more about the mindset, I think, than to drag the exact session to every exact slot every time. So you can 100% borrow these schedules. I'm not going to give you downloadable schedules because I don't like that. I think you have all the information you need to see how I do it. So I can only highly encourage you to try it out yourself and let me know down in the comment section if it worked or if it didn't. Maybe we can fix it together. And just to show you how easy it is now to implement those schedules into your calendar, go to training, calendar, let's go to August for example, and I can immediately see that we have 2 weeks of like 1 game on Saturday, we have 1 week of a Wednesday Saturday game, and we have this week basically off game wise. So what I now can do is really simple. For example, this week, go to the drop down here, go to custom schedules, Saturday game, skadoosh, and that's it. Same goes for this week, and I can do the same thing with the drop down, or I can even come here, do copy, paste, done. And if I do it like this, that is the thing that I told you earlier, that I alternate some sessions. Well, for example, now I would do attacking free kicks and defensive free kicks. Maybe this one to defensive shadow play, chance conversion, and aerial defense, confirm. 2 weeks, done. Let's do the 2-game week next. So let's go here and say Wednesday and Saturday game. And we also have this week. You can basically do whatever you want, but I'm going to go for my preseason schedule, being this one. And this is what I literally do every month and every save that I do. I come in here into my calendar. For each week, I choose the appropriate schedule that I made, do some tweaks here and there, and that's it. So are you still convinced that it's that much work? Come on. And the last part, of course, is the follow-up. We have created the schedules, we have implemented them in our calendar, we have set up those units and the setup. What is next? It's quite simple, really. You will get emails of players complaining. It's your call if you want to act on those emails, because what I always do is go to Dynamics Happiness, as I've shown you already, and look at this column right here. This is a really handy screen. But if you do want to change like intensity, because that is something that players will complain about, do what I told you earlier. Let's take this guy as an example. Should he be complaining about his training workload, there is no need to immediately change sessions in your team training schedule. Come in here, check the workload, because a lot of this can be tweaked, as I've shown you in the previous video. And I would really encourage you to do it on a player-based level. Instead of like having the whole team training changed or whatever, do it like this. And of course, as always, you also have the medical center, or another really handy screen. If you go to training and to rest, you can see here the injury risk and the training intensity for all players. So if there is really something too heavy or whatever going on for a particular player, you'll probably get a physio recommendation right here. Again, it's your call to act on that or not, but just know that this screen is really handy along with the Dynamics Happiness screen. And that, I think, is all that I can tell you about team training. Now, I really hope that this video made the functionality more approachable to some of you guys, because I know it can be really overwhelming. All I hope is that with this information that I have given you, you are at least going to try it yourself. And as always guys, if you appreciate me going through the effort to make these videos, do not hesitate, hit that like button, show the FM Scout channel some love by subscribing and hitting the bell, and also join me in my live streams or check out my videos at my own Leyodemus channel. Link is down in the description. Now, as I said at the very beginning of the video, this is the last tutorial-ish episode in the series, but of course there is one more video coming up. I want to show you that all the things I've mentioned in this and the previous episodes actually work. So I'm gonna take a team. If you have suggestions, you can leave them down in the comment section, but I'm gonna take one team for, let's say, 5 or 10 seasons, whatever. Do everything myself concerning training, so mentoring, individual training, and team training. And we're gonna compare those results to the same team with everything done by the assistant manager. And it's probably gonna take a while before the video comes out because I wanna do it good. But just know that that is one more thing that is coming. All that is left for me to say now is thank you so much for all the support. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have an awesome day. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.